We are here backstage at the Norva with Jonny Hawkins of Nothing More. It's exciting. Headline show tonight. The new album Carnal is coming out. If It Doesn't Hurt, probably one of my favorite songs y'all have released. I remember you sent it to me, and I'm just like, damn, these guys did not come to play on this record. It's great to have you here, dude. I've been looking forward to having you on the podcast for quite some time.
Yeah, man, good to be here. I've followed your page and seen a lot of stuff you've done for a while, so I'm honored to be here and be a part of it.
That's awesome, dude. I really appreciate it. I've read about early in your career with Nothing More where you started out with the band as a drummer, and at some point you're like, I want to take over. I want to become, the vocalist of the band. Talk about kind of how the band formed in those early years of Nothing More and what built to one of my favorite rock records of the last 10 years, how I first found out about you. Talk about those early days of the band.
Yeah, man. So I started the band in like 7th grade, and
That's amazing.
I started drumming when I was 7. My dad took me to a rock show, and I got chills all over my body. Like, when you're that age, you don't really have a filter yet in your brain. So things just come in like 100%, and I'll just never forget that experience of being at a live show. And I remember looking at the drummer, and I looked at my dad and I pointed, and I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I just, I saw somebody hitting something and making music out of it. As a kid, I was rambunctious as hell, breaking shit. And
Were you a bad kid growing up?
I was kind of in the middle. I was a good kid most of the time, and then I'd get into super trouble, and then I was good for like years. You know what I mean? I was like, so I was pretty good most of the time,
Right.
But I was just really active and always very expressive. So the drums seemed like a good choice. But I really wanted to sing. I was always humming and singing, and my mom would always tell me that she knew that I had met a girl at school, or had a crush if I was singing when I got home.
Oh, that's amazing.
That was the little indicator to her or something. And so I tried out for the choir when I was real young, and I was at a small private school, didn't make the choir. I was one of 2 kids that didn't make it.
Right.
And then I also was in acting classes at the time. My mom forced me to be in them because she wanted me to get over my kind of any fear of
were you
stage
not
fright.
social? Were you
No, I was a little shy at first, but then when I break out of my shell, I definitely wasn't.
Right.
But she had a fear, I think, when she was younger, so she didn't want me to have that fear. So she put me in acting class lessons, and then I went to a commercial audition. And I bombed. I just froze up. There was all these adults yelling at me, and it was super dark.
Terrifying.
I couldn't see. I was 7 years old. So those 2 experiences led me down a path to not singing until I was about 21. So I just drummed for years. Started the band on drums. Met my guitar player at a church camp in 7th grade. And
were you religious growing up? Was it a religious household?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was grew up in the church. So did my guitar player, my bass player.
That's
so
awesome.
We're
That's
church
a
boys.
lot of musicians who grew up that way. So that got you into music young. That's awesome.
Yeah, the church is very. It's a very musical community. I mean, the modern kind of American Christian church, if you will, because it's very music centered, and it's really the only place when you're a kid that you could play in front of a live audience 3 times a week.
Yep.
So that's where we kind of got our chops, was in the youth band. So I did that for a while. And as the years went on, we went through multiple singers and just wasn't quite the right fit. And then a bottle of tequila in Mexico convinced me to give it a shot and get over my fears, stop being a pussy. And then I just was on a new path after that. That's kind of the short version.
That's amazing. And so you end up doing This Is the Time, and is that am I leaving? There's an album out before that, isn't there? Is this the first record that?
Oh yeah, so This Is the Time was our breakout single when we got signed.
Was that the first album you sang on?
That was the second album I sang on. That was first album after we got signed.
Right.
And
that's crazy, dude. After you got signed, that's the first record that album is.
Yeah.
I listen to that album still to this day all the time. It's insane how good that record is. It's really held up over the period of time. It's a sick record. The whole album is.
Thank you. That record, I think it's kind of a fun little background to that for anyone watching that has maybe dealt with rejection. That album was a product of rejection. Like, we got rejected multiple times for years leading up to that album. Like, we had, you know, so many opportunities where we thought, okay, this is it. We're going to, like, get that moment where we break, or we're going to get signed, or something's going to pick up. Because we had years of kind of just being the weekend warriors and kind of the local band opening, and just slugging it out in dive bars and eating ramen noodles, sleeping on floors, driving in a taco truck that ran on vegetable oil, you know.
That's crazy.
Like, we have such a long past there. And then what happened was we basically did showcases in LA and New York multiple times in front of all the labels, all the big ones. All of them said no. They all passed, and it was a long drive home from New York City to San Antonio after our final, like, 50th rejection.
That's brutal.
And our van broke, and so we could only drive like a top speed of 40 miles an hour from New York City to San Antonio, Texas.
After it didn't work out.
So we had a lot of time to think, and I remember just getting pissed off the whole drive, just being like, you know what? Fuck this shit. Fuck everyone else. Like, why am I trying to, like, put my fate in other people's hands?
Right.
So that was like this breaking point for me and for us as a band. And I, like, as we're driving back, I looked at the guys. I was like, fuck it. Let's make our own album. Let's, like, go and move into a house. And we did. We moved into a house together. I turned my room into the studio room, and Daniel, like, did all the metal fabrication in the garage, built all of our stage props and design stuff. And we just produced the album ourselves, also with the help of our manager, Will Hoffman. And then we got signed on it, and the rest is history.
Is he still your manager?
Yeah, still our
So
manager.
he was your manager before anything ever popped off. Had he managed anyone else before?
Yeah, so he managed our bass player Daniel's brother's band.
Right.
They got signed to Sony. They had this big breakout song on, like, the Spider-Man soundtrack at the time.
The original Spider-Man one?
Yeah.
Like Hero?
I think so.
Dude, that's sick.
I think it was that one. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure. And so his brother's band got signed, you know, before us, and yeah, we were like the last band left standing. It's like all these bands were getting signed, but then they were, like, having horrible deals with the labels and all these, you know, hang-ups, and we were just still cruising along, sleeping on people's couches and playing bars, and then we finally hit our break. So
it seems like a lot of people who go through that, I think most people wouldn't want to go through that, getting in there. Like, you have to really love it to make it through, like, the fucking taco truck and, like, 40 miles an hour after getting rejected. I was talking to somebody this past weekend at this festival, and they were saying, like, you know, or I was saying to them, like, there's so much hassle that you have to deal with in the industry. You have to really want to do it to kind of get through it. And so it seems like you had perseverance to be able to make it through shit like that.
Well, so I would add something to what you just said. I totally agree. You have to really love it, but you also have to really hate the alternative.
Yeah.
Like, I had to really fear, like, and know what I feared, which was working a job that I didn't want to work.
Yes.
Like, that was a big deal to me. I'm just such a, I like doing what I want to do. I like control, and so doing, especially creative control. So I just was afraid of ending up in a job that I didn't want to do. So that was scarier to me than, like, living on pennies for years at a time.
When did you start to feel like the band is taking off? This is actually going to become a viable career for me to actually work in music professionally.
We had kind of I think our biggest fork in the road was when I started singing, because before then we had several iterations of the band with different singers, and we kind of would, like, grow a little bit and then fall and then grow and then fall.
Right.
And when I started, basically the choice to start singing was we were at the end of, like, 5 to 8 years of kind of the DIY indie thing.
Right.
And as you know, like, you can get really burnt out doing that.
Sure.
It's very grueling. And I just reached a point where I was like, I need to make a choice here. Like, we need to, something needs to happen, and we need to grow, or I need to change paths. And part of that choice was I kept putting my fate in other people's hands. Like I kept thinking someone else was going to do what I needed them to do.
Never will.
And they never did.
That'll never happen.
And that's was the catalyst, honestly, of me stepping up to sing. Because I was like, you know what? I don't even think I'm a great singer, but at least it'll be me failing and not at the hands of someone else. You know what I mean?
I feel that so much. Like I would rather like my business fail and it just be me doing it my way and me doing it that than do it in like a contrived way that I don't identify with or, you know, et cetera. I definitely feel that 100%. Yeah. And I think that's also when you get in that mindset, it's hard to fail because you're not going to accept anything less. And so and
you can't blame anyone else too, because when you have somebody else in the driver's seat, it's like this buffer, because if you really fail, it doesn't hurt as much because it's their fault. You know what I mean? It's not your fault.
Right.
And I think that was a big moment, and that was the big turning point. And then from there, fast forward, we played Aftershock, you know, the Danny Wimmer Festival.
Hell yeah, shout out to Danny Wimmer.
Danny Wimmer, what's up?
The whole crew.
Yeah, I mean, everyone with who he works with, just great people. Danny Wimmer actually managed us with Will.
He did?
During the self-titled album.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What?
He managed us, and then...
Danny Wimmer's always involved in everything.
Dude. So when I first met Danny Wimmer...
That's amazing,
We
bro.
played in front of 500 people on one of the side stages at Aftershock. And this is right before we got signed. So we weren't even signed yet. We just put out the self-titled. We didn't even put it on, at the time, iTunes or Spotify or anything. So we were just selling physical copies because we wanted to hold the music in case we got signed.
Totally.
So there would be like a release of it digitally. And then Danny was we had a awesome show. I felt great about it. I walked off stage. This guy comes up and shakes my hand, and he's like, amazing set, man. Glad to have you. I thought it was a sound guy. And I was like, thanks, dude. I appreciate the help. And, you know, I was talking to him like he was like the monitor guy or the front house. I just thought he was a tech. And then as I walked off later, Will came up to me. He's like, do you know who you talked to? I was like, what? And he's like, that was Danny Wimmer. And he's like, the guy who runs the whole festival. And I was like, oh, shit. That's cool. And then I was doing an interview later that day, and he crashed the interview, just like we're having one right now.
That's amazing.
He literally walks in front of the camera mid-interview. And at first, we're like, what the hell's going on? And the guy next to me almost looked kind of pissed off. And he goes, how would you like to play in front of 13,000 people tomorrow? And I was like, yes. It's a hard yes from me. And so the next day we had an open slot on the main stage, and he put us on it. And ever since then, it just like we were getting phone calls, you know, labels kind of seeking us out and different stuff. And shout out to Clay Bush as well, because he was with that crew at the time, and he was a big part of, you know, us getting interest from labels and things like that.
So you think at those festivals now these days, these festivals have gotten so gargantuan, do you think that they're kind of also a way bands can sincerely get discovered when you tell a story like that, when you just like, fuck yeah, and then you start getting put on?
Yeah. I mean, it happened to us.
That's amazing.
It definitely was like, it was like that turning point that everybody always asks about. Like, when was that moment? That was that moment that we needed for years. You know what I mean? Where it just caused this domino effect of interest and like people to really pay attention and go, who's this band?
He's really influential. Extremely influential.
Yeah.
He's made a lot of shit happen, and you just keep finding out more.
Yeah, and what I love about Danny is he's having worked with him personally. He's the real deal, you know. Like he's a hard-nosed businessman, but at the same time he comes from a place of passion. Like he's genuinely passionate about it. He likes real bands with real stories and with real heart.
Yeah.
And so he's invested in the culture. And I think when you look back, I don't know, 10 years ago, he was just investing in this culture. And you can see now, like, it's been growing. It's been turning into like this wave, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like now there's so many of these festivals now, it's now becoming like a mega tour for them.
Yeah,
it's like a touring, it's almost at this point like a touring festival with different brands. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what they're doing, and I just came off of Rockville, and it's just so cool. But what do you think it takes, you know, because y'all are one of the bands that have had success and have taken off in the more modern era. You know, you guys really kind of came on my radar maybe 2015, 2016. Is kind of maybe when you guys started popping off, I think.
Yeah, 2014 was when we got signed and released
Yeah.
Self-titled, so that sounds about right.
And I just remember like a friend of mine, it was actually JT KV, he's the singer of Era. And I remember him being, he was like, bro, this shit's right up your alley. And I remember him showing it to me. And he's one of those people, he's very thoughtful, and he'll be like, I know you'll like this. And I listened to it and I'm like, oh, fuck, you're absolutely right. This is insane.
Nice.
You know, that whole, this is the time, that melody, dude, it's insane.
Yeah. Nice.
Was that the first album that like, well, no, you had self-produced before that, but the whole indie aspect of it, which you touched on, and going 8 years with that, was there a time when you went that long where like people, you weren't well known then, people see what you have now and they see where you're at now, so it's like easy now. But back then, were there people that were doubting you? Like 8 years in, was it the band's going to make it kind of thing?
Do you mean like were there people doubting that we were going to like
people
really?
Were there people in your life? Did you feel like maybe at a point like maybe this isn't going to work?
Oh yeah, there's so many moments of doubt along the way. Yeah, I mean, it's just a very uncertain path. I mean, to make it in the music industry is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not an easy business, but I knew since I was a kid, you know, I think you kind of have to have that deep down that like you had some kind of formative experience where you were just like, this is it. Like, I want this. Like, I want to be up there. I want that position. Like, you know, make some room. Like,
right.
That's my spot.
Right.
And I think if you have that, then everything else is just how and how long and how can I speed it up, you know? But you always see in your mind's eye yourself there. That was one thing I'll attribute to our manager, Will, like, and maybe it's good advice or hopefully it'll help maybe a younger band out there. But this idea that he's like, when you play these festivals and this was when we were smaller, he's like, look at these bands, you know, who are playing in front of 20,000 people or 15 or 10. He's like, these are your peers, you know? He got our head in that state of mind from an early stage. He's like, this is where you belong. This is your world, you know, go own it, you know?
That's amazing. And do managers, is that like, do they do a lot of like mindset stuff with you? Do they help you like kind of understand the business better? This is so crazy. As long as I've been doing this, I'm still not exactly sure. I know managers do a fuck ton, but I don't know like exactly like on a day-to-day standpoint, what exactly they're doing.
What are they doing over there?
Exactly? Like, I know they like do so much and they make it all happen.
They are.
But, like, are you talking to them daily? I mean.
Yeah, almost daily. They're kind of the point man. Well, I'll say this. Our manager, Will, probably does more than most because we've worked together for so long. And he also co-produced a lot of stuff with us on the creative side, which a lot of managers don't do that.
No, that's extremely rare.
Right. So he actually was a producer before he was our manager.
That's sick.
And he transitioned into managing us. I think we had like a meeting at Taco Cabana or somewhere like that in Texas at the time. A very formal business meeting at a Taco Cabana. And he was like, yeah, I want to manage you guys. And ever since then, what he really does is he's just constantly, it's like catching stuff that's just falling from the sky and trying to organize it. Sure. You know, it's like we're focused on getting to the next city and playing the show and making sure like I have my voice in check and the drums are tuned and the guitars are ready. You know, like we have to deal with that on the daily. And then when we get home, we have to like be thinking about what the next album's going to be like and start executing on it. And so while we're doing all that, you know, your manager is connecting all the dots. He's making sure that the agent is having us booked in the right markets and is it the right venues and why. And he's always asking the questions and double checking our business manager, like with the finances, you know, the money needs to be going here, not there. And do we have enough merchandise? Do we have, you know, it's really overseeing the entire operation of the entire business and kind of managing the trajectory of the entire group.
He's done very well with the
band. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a busy job.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And especially when you have multiple people on your roster, I'm always, you know, because I know a lot of managers, and it's so insane. I know a lot of managers, but I've never really been like, what exactly do you do? And like, but I know they're doing a lot, and so it's amazing how many people behind the scenes are also working, you know, to support the bands and doing stuff like that. And I love that he was involved in the creative side too. So you can tell like his heart's really in it.
Yeah.
You know, because he was involved in that. When you were growing up, what were the bands for you that were like, you know, oh shit, I really want to do this. I want to do this at a high level. Who inspired you to get into this?
There were quite a few.
What was the era like? What year was it when you were in like high school?
So I graduated in 2005.
Okay, so let me guess.
Yeah.
All right, you're like listening to Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah.
You're listening to 3 Days Grace.
Yeah.
Papa Roach.
Yeah.
Slipknot.
Yeah.
Okay. But who were the
a big one in high school actually that I got real turned on to was
we're around
Muse.
the same era.
Muse, when the Absolution album came out,
yeah.
I remember seeing them in front of like 500 people. And I was just like, damn, these musicians are like, they were just different than everyone else. I feel like they kind of had their own thing. And that really intrigued me. And I was going like really heavy to really like not heavy, like the Postal Service.
Dude, Giving Up or whatever that album is. It's one of my favorite albums ever.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, in that era.
I was listening to real alternative stuff, you know, like the Flaming Lips or Death Cab for Cutie. Like I had that kind of, it was weird.
Ben sings, it's the same guy, Death Cab for Postal Service.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I was always, like in high school, I was never really, I don't ever feel like I fit into one group.
Right.
You know, there's like the stereotypes of high school. There's the jocks and the nerds and then like the goth kids and then the theater kids. I was always kind of in the middle of all of them.
You were a sports guy?
I was both.
Okay.
So I wrestled in high school and I also did drumline.
Okay.
So I was like...
Oh, yeah, you were in both worlds.
I was in the musical world, but I also was kind of into sports, but not totally.
Sure.
So I feel like even in the social groups, because a lot of times you listen to the music that the people you're around are listening to. So I had kind of that alternative, kind of melancholy vibes. And then I also had like my friends who were just like metalheads and like just listening to Slipknot and Pantera and shit like that, and Metallica. And System of a Down was a big one.
Yeah.
System of a Down, I think, and Tool were probably two of the biggest like mind blow bands that I was like, what is this? Like, and that era was so cool because when you look back, I feel like those bands were so different than each other, like the big bands.
Yeah,
like
they
System
really
of a Down, Tool, Smashing Pumpkins, Rage Against the Machine, Pantera. They just were their own like universes almost. Slipknot, and
That's
then
very true.
Then I feel like in the like 2000s, or like the, I don't know, 2010s or whatever, bands just kind of all started sounding like the last band that popped off, and it just kind of got real like copycat.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Sam from Architects the other day.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, yeah, a lot of people love that Doomsday riff. I'm like, damn, bro. He's like, it really doesn't bother me. He's a nice guy.
Well, you know, it kind of happened, I think, when Creed popped off, too, because
Shout out Creed.
What's up, Creed? Yeah. Dude, I listened to Creed a ton when I was a kid. It was one of my first, it was my first arena show that I ever went to.
That's so sick.
And actually, I was on Shiprocked, a little side trail story, but I ran into Mark Tremonti, and I was pretty hammered, because I was like, it's Shiprocked.
I heard Shiprocked is wild.
And I ran into him in the hallway heading back to my room, and I was like, dude, I'm such a big fan since I was a kid, and he was like, me too, I love y'all stuff. I was like, what?
I believe
it blew
that.
my mind.
I believe that.
Yeah, so that was cool running into him, but that was like childhood or middle school. I just loved those guys. And then after they came out, every band sounded like Creed for a while, right? A period of time. And the same thing when like Djent kind of popped onto the scene. I think Periphery kind of took that Meshuggah thing and made it like more palatable.
Sure.
And the production was more slick, and then like every band was like Djenty for a while, and then and then metalcore and Djent just kind of.
Periphery was really influential. I love Periphery.
Oh yeah, we toured with them a few years back. That was a great tour.
Yeah, I mean
great band.
They're just insane. They don't get, enough props, I think, because of their songwriting and riffs and what Misha does on the guitar and.
Yeah, they paved the way, I think, for a lot of what we're hearing now with bands.
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing, and there's always those bands that you're like, damn, they did so much and they don't get the props. You know, it's like they're still great. They're still very successful, but it's like, you know, I feel like they should get a lot more for the influence they've had in the genre, you know?
Yeah. And what's interesting is that there was a band called, I think it was Sixth. Have you ever heard of them?
I think I have, yeah.
So Sixth and Meshuggah were before Periphery.
Right.
And I feel like they were kind of like the grandfathers of Djent.
Yeah.
Whereas Periphery was like
that.
the Djent daddy.
Right.
And then after that, you know, everybody just kind of integrated it in different ways. But
have you always been, I mean, I'm assuming you work out or else you have like an insane metabolism.
Just cocaine, man. That's
just
my
coke, just
regimen.
pure unadulterated cocaine.
Yeah.
Probably a bad time to be doing coke right now with all this stuff going on. But yeah, for me, like, I'm always interested in talking to people about working out. I just talked to Nita Strauss about this. Like, is that something that has come easy to you? Were you ever like overweight and lost weight? Like, was this a later thing, or have you just always been kind of health conscious?
I've been health conscious most of my life. My mom was kind of a health nut.
That's cool.
She was juicing like vegetables and fruits like for me at a young age.
Was she like kind of like a hippie kind of person?
She wasn't like a full-blown hippie because she was pretty like, I don't know how to describe it. She was like an artist, but also an entrepreneur, like business person.
That's
so
sick.
she was kind of both.
That's awesome.
She wasn't full-blown hippie, but on the health side, she kind of was, I guess.
Yeah, like homeopathic, maybe a better word.
That's like my grandma. So
Oh, okay.
her mom was way further that direction. Whereas my mom was more just like making me drink these weird green drinks, and I hated them. But she's like, drink it. It's good for you. So I was always eating weird stuff growing up, and just my friends would make fun of the food that I would eat. But she was always very health conscious. And then my dad, I think I got the influence from him because he played a ton of sports growing up, and he was very military. So
Sure.
He had a rule, like growing up, I had to play a sport every season.
My dad was the same way.
Really?
Not every season, but in the summertime.
Okay. Yeah.
I had to play football and I sucked.
I loved football, but then as I got older, I was like, man, I'm not big enough for football. I think I need to. So I got into wrestling because I wanted something equally as violent.
Sure.
You know, but wrestling, I felt like I had a little more of an edge there. And yeah, I played every sport you could imagine growing up.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Like you go back, and I remember when I was playing football, I did have the 4 or 5. I didn't really know what it was, but I was like, man, getting smashed in the head like this can't be good.
No.
I knew at the time. I was like, I hesitated a lot because I was real concerned about taking head blows because I was like,
Well, I was smart of you. Most people don't think like
even at
that.
the time, I was like, you know, probably like 2004 or 5. I was always nervous about that. I'm like, oh man, this can't be good. And now there's all this conversation. But I
this
also am
CTE
like,
stuff, yeah.
I'm like, I feel like they can just make the helmets like 20% bigger. You know, and like it's like I do think that the some of the rules they have are good for protecting athletes. Some of the stuff they do with quarterbacks are, you know, it's a balance. It's like you can't go all the way and ban tackling.
Right.
You know,
You
it's
can't
like-
nerf the sport.
Yeah, the NFL's doing a lot of that right now, and it's lame as hell. And really what they're doing is opening themselves up for competition because, like, you're going to go, oh, yeah, we have this. But, I mean, like, power slap is a thing. And it's like, you know, like, if you see
What's that?
I love UFC and I love Dana White, but he is
where they just stand there and
I don't know if that's a sport.
That is you know what my favorite version of that is? I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube with that, and it's like the hillbillies of West Virginia, like out in the woods, and they're doing slap fights and stuff.
I've seen that, but I've also seen they have like redneck fights too, like there's bare knuckle fight championships, which is not that's like a real league. And they do really cool stuff. I actually like them a lot. Alex Terrible may fight for them, he was telling me.
Oh, nice.
Which I said, dude, they better pay you because that'll be the biggest pay-per-view they ever had.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for him, but I'm also like, bro, like, don't do too much. Like, don't take him out of head blows. I told him in the podcast he just shot.
I mean, I would agree. If you just stand there and just take it,
you
like
got
let
a good
someone
thing
hit
going,
you,
bro. Like, you got a good thing going with this music stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's like a redneck version of that, and they'll get on there and be like, my name is Jimmy, and I'm ready to fight you. You stole my carburetor, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's some personal shit. We're going deep here.
I'm like, yeah, that's an amazing. It's like, have you ever seen the documentary, The Wild and Wonderful Lights of West Virginia?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like shit like that.
Dude, I love that. So that's so funny you brought that up.
Yeah, and Jeff Tremaine directed that, and it's actually a really good documentary.
Yeah, have you heard of the Blue People from West Virginia?
No, but I'm gonna have to watch it.
It was like this inbreeding, basically the end of enough of an inbreeding line of people that they started turning blue. Or so like their skin would literally have like a blue skin. Something like that. Look it up. I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, but speaking of head injuries, man, we like growing up, playing sports that much. I think I had about 4 or 5 concussions where like I literally couldn't remember the entire day.
Oh wow.
Like I
doing
got
what?
one.
Like my brother would climb up in trees and like fall like 2 stories down. It's like insane fucking injuries.
Just doing dumb boy shit.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, like we had a fucking for my birthday one year, we had a slip and slide, and my brother was like, I'm gonna do a front flip, and just smashed his head. My brother rules. He's awesome. But it's just like you look back on that shit and you're like, come on, bro.
Yeah. When you're that age, you're just like, I'm going to try. I'm going to go for it.
Whatever. He was fearless.
He's going to send it.
I respect it. I mean, he went 110%.
Oh, yeah. I was literally wondering that the other day because I was, we had these young Nothing More fans, and I remember hearing like jokes like from these little kids. And I was like, that's the same joke that we told in 5th grade. And they're from like a state across the country,
right.
A totally different generation. And it's like thinking, how did that spread for like that many years? And I asked my dad one time, and he had the same joke when he was a kid.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Even though we have this internet, which I wonder, like, is social media good for little kids? But like, we have this whole internet now, and it's amazing how I'm just glad, like, when I was a kid, like, there wasn't really, like, social media like that. Other than MySpace, which was, like, the fun, that was the fun stuff. But, so, talking about this new album, Carnal, that you've got coming out, If It Doesn't Hurt, I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, damn, this is one of the strongest singles you guys, have ever released. And I know you write a lot of music that's personal to you. I know you've gone through a lot of shit over the last few years. We don't have to rehash all of that.
Yeah.
But, like, how much of this album is like a personal reflection of like what you've gone through?
Man, so all of our music is pretty much a personal reflection of stuff I've gone through. Each album has been kind of a time capsule of experiences, whether it's personal, romantic relationship or family relationship or friends or just every sphere of life.
Right.
And yeah, this album's filled with that. If It Doesn't Hurt, without rehashing everything, that I went through, it was, I just poured that whole hellish year into that song. And it was crazy. Like when I started working on it with Drew and Zach, shout out to Drew and Zach, amazing guys who are incredibly talented. It's literally, the song was like written in like a few hours. And
that's amazing.
Like,
isn't it crazy how songs like that are done fast?
Yeah, especially when you have kind of this like, especially when you feel misunderstood, or at least for me, if I'm like, I feel like everyone's against me, and maybe they're against me because they don't understand something. You feel misunderstood or not, I don't know, just kind of ganged up on, whether it's real or not in your own mind. And it's kind of that feeling of being in a corner, that sometimes that it drives some kind of animalistic part of you, and it creates a fire. And then I just like, I've noticed a lot of songs came out like that. Another example was Go to War. Mm-hmm. At that time I was going through like a divorce, and it's like, it just was boom. I had so much pent up and so much sadness, frustration, and
you go through a lot of shit, bro.
Oh, dude, I've been through a lot in my life, but it's good thing I'm an artist. I have somewhere to put it, and I look at it as like there's purpose to it, because I feel like that's my job, is to like go dig deep, reflect on things I've gone through, and then try to find what's the way that I can turn the shitty stuff into gold. Into something positive that can at least
maybe help others,
or what did I need in that time? Because a lot of other people go through the same kind of stuff. And so it's just, a way to put that out there.
You did House of Sand with Eric from I Prevail. God, I love that dude. That guy. Really
Yeah.
He's the best.
He's a great hang too. He's just like he's such a. He's one of the dudes. You know
he
what
is,
I mean?
man. He's such a bro. I love that guy.
Yeah. We hit it off in Germany. So we were playing with them and Disturbed, I Prevail and Disturbed in Switzerland. And then we had a day off. Or no, we had a show in Munich, Germany, and I Prevail had a day off in the same city. So he came out to our show. And we just threw back some beers after the show, and he was super stoked. And we were like, yeah, man, we love your style of screaming and kind of your approach, because it's real. He's very dynamic with his screaming.
Yeah.
You know, he's not like one of those overly monotone screamers where it gets.
He has a lot of.
Yeah, he has inflection.
He enunciates and
yeah, that's the kind of screaming I really like.
Yeah, same.
You know,
I love I Prevail.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
They're such a sick band.
Especially their last two albums, they seem to really like skyrocket their sound and their approach.
They work really hard on that as well.
Yeah, so we were like, we knew this song had kind of an opportunity for someone to be a little more aggressive. Like we'd finished the song and I'd kind of done the vocals, but we were like, yeah, let's bring someone in a little more aggressive and see what it sounds like. And he was the first person that came to mind because we clicked kind of off the stage,
right?
You know, so yeah.
What can you share? I may or may not have heard a little bit of the rest of the album, and there's a lot of I know a lot of people have, and there's a lot of anticipation for this record because, you know, some would say, I would say it's probably going to be one of the best Nothing More albums ever. From what it's very strong. What do you think it is about this energy? Is there something about like maybe all the stuff that you've gone through over the years where you feel like I gotta fucking make this shit crazy? Like, did you have like a chip on your shoulder with this album?
Oh yeah,
like, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I felt like I had a gun to my head for the last year and a half. Like, again, without getting into too much detail, my ex, I kind of felt hostage, like. And I was in this weird, like, situation where if you've ever been gaslit before by someone who's, like, just will, like, constantly switch it up on you, like, and then tell you things and then retract the statement and then tell you they have your back and then they don't. And then, I don't know, it's just, I felt like when you're in a situation when you have people that you trust, you know, whether it's like my band or a romantic relationship that's fragmented, those are the moments when you're the most vulnerable, you know, and you have probably the most pain and the most potential for pain, but you also have the most gas for fire.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I just took all of my frustration and poured it into this album. And like you said, it's kind of like I just got to go on this one. I felt like I was internally holding myself back. Like, I don't know if you can relate to this or anyone listening can relate, but sometimes like you're in situations where you kind of like settle for something or you feel like you're not really living up to your potential or you're holding yourself back. And it's not because of you. You're holding yourself back because of someone else or something else, like whether it's a bad job or you're with the wrong person. And I just was kind of in that state of mind, and my conscience, like my inner voice was just screaming at me for like 2 or 3 years, and it just escalated to a boiling point over time, you know, through so many situations and so many signs. And I just got to a point, I'm like, man, I need to follow my calling. I'd gotten so far off the path, you know what I mean? And so this album is the sound of going back all in into my calling, you know.
These songs have been performing really strong for you as well. You know, what does it mean for this to, I saw you, you know, I didn't get to see you, but I was out at thanks for the hookup, by the way, out there in Vegas.
Yeah.
World. That was a huge show.
That was a blast.
Ballin' show.
Yeah.
And so many musicians were there hanging out with some of the Falling in Reverse guys. You know, it's like, it was all, Wage War was insane. It was just a huge, that venue, the Hollywood Bowl or whatever it's called, the Brooklyn Bowl, was sick. You know, what does it mean when you put a song out? You know, how many albums are you in now? This will be, what, the 4th, 5th?
The singing?
For you.
Yeah, because we had like such a a pass before that. Few Not Fleeting, self-titled, The Stories We Tell Ourselves, Spirits, and then Carnal.
So this will be the 5th one, and I mean,
5th one, yeah.
These songs are connecting hard with people. Like, I was watching WrestleMania, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, and WrestleMania goes off the air and they play It Doesn't Hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, that's sick.
Dude, the timing couldn't have been better for that. It's so funny.
Rock, dude.
Dude, it was a great pairing. It worked real well. And I didn't realize how many people watch wrestling because I got texts from like everyone being like, hey, I just saw your song in a promo. Yeah. And I didn't even know. Yeah. Like, I guess our manager and team like hadn't even alerted us yet. We're like, what? This is dope. So that was pretty cool. And, you know, I love UFC and, you know, wrestling and those worlds kind of overlap a lot. So that's really cool to see it. Like,
that was
stuff
sick.
like that.
Yeah, and that's cool. WWE has done a lot for Rock, and I hopefully with this new ownership that they have, they got away from it for a while, but like seeing Motionless up there and seeing, you know, I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff comes back because I've always felt as though like I talk about wrestling on my show sometimes because I know now like I've had like Johnny from Avenged Sevenfold up there. We'll just be talking about WCW and like NWO and shit. It's like the fans will love it.
Oh,
it's like,
dude.
Rock
Sting was my guy back in the day when I was a kid.
There was a time where Danny, yes, he was. Dude, Sting was everything. And then you didn't know if he was going to kill NWO. And when that dude drops down from the rafters with a baseball bat, you're like, oh, he's not playing.
Sting's angry.
Yeah, he's mad at the N64 games. And like,
dude,
for your buddies, there was no internet. They all had to come over and beat the shit out of each. People are throwing controllers.
Oh, dude, me and my friends like probably almost sent each other to the emergency room multiple times on a trampoline trying to recreate, you know, these wrestling moves.
Yeah, there's this guy online who kind of does that, Superhuman or what. I don't know if you've seen this guy, but he like... No. There's people on the internet that do shit they're not supposed to be doing with like stunts and stuff, and he's like jumping through barbed wire tables, and I like morbid curiosity watching.
Yeah, dude. You want to talk about some morbid curiosity? Dude, I watched something really dark the other day. I don't know if it's good for the interview or not.
Well, it depends on how bad it is. If it's bad, I'll just clip it out. It's fine.
Okay, I'll just say it. And,
dude, if it's bad, I'll cut it out.
Ooh, my drummer. We just went down some weird like conversational rabbit hole where we were talking about like morbid, like just crazy deaths, I guess. Right. And there was this one we came across on Reddit where this guy, it was like a Russian guy in like a workshop. You know those lathe? It's like a lathe. It's like a wood cutting machine. Right. Oh my God.
I can already tell this is going to be...
I watched this video and it was disgusting. It was horrible, but he got his arm stuck in this like spinning machine.
Oh yeah.
And his arm sucks in, and then soon after you see his like whole spine like crack backwards, and his whole body goes, and it's just like spitting blood like on the wall. It's like that. It's like Final Destination kind of shit. Dude, I was like horrified watching it. I was like, oh my God, like life can be. But the weird thing, here's a weird thing, the paradox of life is the more horrific like a death looks, probably the least that person actually experienced it.
Right.
Like, so it's like scarier to the rest of us, but that guy probably felt like a second of pain because it was so fast and horrific.
Yeah, or
that's a weird paradox of life.
It is. Well, I know you've got a show coming up here. I want to kind of ask you one final question about this record to give the fans an understanding of kind of what's coming here, you know, in the next 30 seconds to a minute here. What would you tell people? Actually, I have probably 30 seconds, but what would you tell people here about this record and what's coming, which I've linked to in the description?
I think this is probably our best album yet, and
I believe it, for real.
We still have our home team mascot Alan Watts intertwined into the DNA of all the music, and so it's kind of a journey of an album, but there is hard hitters all along that journey. So I think we're about to grow a lot on this one. A lot of new people that maybe slept on us will be our new friends.
I honestly believe that. Jonny Hawkins, thank you so much for doing this, bro. I've been a fan of your music for a long time. Very much looking forward to this album release and everything. Y'all, check it out in the link in the description, All Things, Nothing More. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button for the latest news and interviews from Rockfeed.